Dreaming is what you do when you sleep. Achieving is what you do when you work.
If I was paid that much to leave my job, you would never see or hear from me ever again.
These were the gods of racing.
I've got shivers.
So there is this misconception that I either write my lines or I have a script.
It's a hard watch, that.
I think there's a lot of AI out there.
You rub shoulders with, the creme de la creme.
Nelson Mandela said, sport has the power to change the world.
His parents rock up and it's
No! Then I went on Drive to Survive and now I'm just a joke.
Up to speed.
Well, folks, can you believe it? Season 8 of Drive to Survive. I mean, every year I think to myself, what more can they tell us? And having seen it, honestly, it keeps giving, if I'm honest. It's great to have you with us, Will, so you can give us all the behind the scenes of what actually goes on into bringing that show to the world.
Yeah, season 8. Who'd have thought it?
Who'd have thunk it?
It's great when you look back to season 1 and this.
Can I have your autograph while we're here?
I hear that people queue outside of hotels to get your signature.
No, not at all. It's I think what's lovely about the series is, what it's done for the sport, what it's done for the drivers. I think they kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. Hate it because it, takes a lot of their time up and they have to do loads of interviews for it. Love it because what it's done for their kind of global awareness, what it's done for their bank balances, I think really first and foremost. But what it's done for the sport and what it's done for the way in which I think sports stories, sports documentaries are told and are made, it completely changed the game.
And I think, speaking from a personal experience, it's brought on so many more younger fans, especially, a bigger female audience, which is amazing to see. I mean, a lot of my friends that never even thought about watching F1 are now like, I can't believe you got to watch it early. Can we come round and watch it with you? They love it. Yeah. And I think that in itself is amazing.
Can I say, as the elder statesman of this crew here, it makes me feel proud that Formula One has gained this level of popularity after 75 years, 76 season, I think we're going in Formula One, because I've been a fan for 40 odd years and I was involved in the sport for 30 years. And it's like, people didn't really get it for a long time, but now people get it because it is intriguing.
Well, I'm so happy to hear you say that, DC, because I've also been a part of the wave of people, like seeing people around me all of a sudden loving the sport that I've loved as long as I can remember. And just as a personal impact, like state of mind, it's been great. But I've always been concerned that, some of the elderly statesmen of the sport, like yourself, maybe sometimes there's been a bit of backlash of the way in which the sport is changing as a result of it. But I also, as you say, I'd love to see the fact that it's opened doors to so many more people. It's made Formula One a household sport. It's made things a lot more understandable. Now it's the gateway. It's the new gateway into Formula One and has had an incredible impact on the Formula One world.
What's fascinating with Drive to Survive as well, though, is there are Drive to Survive fans who are just Drive to Survive fans. They don't watch the races.
It's because
they just wait for each season of Drive to Survive come out. Like they're fans of the Kardashians or whatever other reality show they love. I've met so many people around the world when you travel to the races. They're like, when's the next season of Drive to Survive coming out? And you're like, February, March, whatever. Have you enjoyed this season? Oh, I'm not watching it. Don't tell me how it plays out. You're like, what?
That is
crazy.
Insane, and I'm kind of jealous of those people who aren't setting their alarms for 3 a.m. to watch the Melbourne race.
They're just waiting for the new season.
Juanda says, Will has some amazing lines. What do you need to win? Do you need to cross the finish line first?
Very funny.
Does Will write his own lines, and do they lean into the memes?
So there is this misconception that I either write my lines or I have a script. So I told you guys on the last show, right? I do like 6, 7, 8 sittings through the year. Each one's 5 hours long. If I was that bad at reading a script, they would have got rid of me by now and got someone else in who could do it in one sitting. No, it's they just ask me questions for 5 hours and I fire the immediate responses. And the reason it takes so long for the answers to come out is because it's just the cogs in my brain turning at a very slow rate of what do I want to say? How can I get myself in the minimum amount of trouble possible, but make it kind of understandable?
But Will, what do you need to qualify first?
That went over my head for a sec.
He almost took the bait.
The memes thing is, it's really funny because my eldest daughter's 16 now, and I think last year at some point I'd said something really obvious in the car. And she was just like, "Oh God, Dad, you're such a meme."
That means you're cool, though. I think she's saying you're cool.
I hope so. It's
a very fine line.
I love leaning into that. You know, I first started in this sport as a print journalist, right? I wanted to be a serious writer like David Tremaine and Nigel Roebuck and, you know, those great guys that I grew up reading their race reports. And I started as a print journalist and I was breaking stories, you know, and I was like, yes, this work is important. And then I went into television where journalism goes to die. And then I went on Drive to Survive and now I'm just a joke. I don't mind. It's fine. It's all good fun, but yeah, it's a long way away from the serious journalist.
Is there a line in there this season that you're cringing for
no,
everyone to hear?
I'm really upset. So normally every season I have to spend like a week after it airs apologizing to people, and there isn't this season. There's nothing that I think I've said that's too bad.
Well, I think you should watch it the second time.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, talking about reputations, Bethan has a question on the drivers.
Hi guys. Loving the show so far, especially that really insightful interview with Max. My question for you is, does this season help or hurt certain drivers' reputations? Thank you.
Reputations, you literally are as good as your last race. Yeah. So if you've won your last race, everyone's going to celebrate you. Everybody loves a winner. If you've binned it, you know, let's look over last season, when we got to Baku, we arrived there with Oscar Piastri looking like world champion-elect. He then bins it in qualifying, and then he bins it in the race. And it was like, where's Oscar?
Well, not to spoil anything, but obviously when they asked a lot of the drivers and team principals who they had their money on midway through the season, Lando or Oscar, they all said Oscar.
Yeah. A lot of us said Oscar, and it was his to lose at some point, and he did lose it, unfortunately. But I have to say, you know, we know that the Formula One drivers are the best drivers in the world, and we don't expect them to come there and learn and all that good stuff. But I do think that Drive to Survive reminds people at home just how hard the job is, and it gives us real context into what the drivers are experiencing, besides what they're experiencing in the cockpit, whether there's other noise going around outside, the other struggles that they seem to have. And I think for that reason, I think it does them mostly all a favor, even if the storyline isn't great. We've all seen those headlines. We all know that Oscar didn't win the championship and he lost the championship at the end, or whatever the story might be, or that Jack Doohan got binned after a number of races. But this gives context to what happens behind the scenes and how they handle it themselves. So I think it helps them all out, to be honest.
Yeah, look, there's no question. It's elevated the sport. The perfect storm of Drive to Survive coming out. Ferrari, Mercedes didn't join the party because they were like, why would we give access for nothing? But brilliant vision from Liberty. Sean Bratches was the person responsible for that. And COVID and people needing to watch things. So that was a stroke of good fortune out of horrible circumstances. Sure. I suspect some of the younger guys, because a bit like you mentioned in a previous episode about Antonelli signing autographs for everybody and shaking hands with everybody, he's a puppy. He hasn't realised how energy sapping that is as he progresses in his career. And I remember it well. When I was younger, people would say to you, oh, don't change. You're lovely. We evolve. You have to change. You know, it's an inevitable part of growing into who you ultimately, you know, reaching your ultimate potential. So I suspect the guys towards the back of the grid and the younger drivers love it because they see themselves on telly. Yeah. And the older guys, they're like, does Lewis feature very much on one-on-one interviews and Drive to Survive?
Not really this season, and Max doesn't either.
Well, look, there is there's a scene in there, I think it's Spa, where Antonelli's actually having a chat with Lewis and saying, oh, Mercedes have put in like 42 days of like media marketing days. And you can see that he's already going, oh gosh, I can't manage this, like the demand. But regardless of whether
20 days in my contract, no more.
I'm amazed Lewis didn't chirp up to Antonelli at that point and be like, yeah, you want to change that in your contract.
Yeah. I mean, they were sitting in the press conference. I think they knew there were mics around and probably a conversation to have somewhere else. But we know that this is demanding on the drivers. We know that it's potentially extra energy that they need. Regardless of which way you slice it, though, as we said from the top of the show, Formula One today is more relevant than it has ever been. And Drive to Survive plays a huge role in that. We've got sold out locations. We've got record-breaking numbers on viewership, record-breaking numbers in terms of people coming to the track. Would you have liked to have been in Drive to Survive back in the day?
Look, I accepted everything that I had to do. So I always said to my team, if it's important to the team, it will be important to me because we're one unit.
As long as it's not day 21.
Yeah, day 21. Yeah, but you're right. But we tested a lot more in my generation. We did less Grand Prix, but we were testing every single week. So I got to do what I love doing, which is driving Grand Prix cars. These guys get like 2 or 3 days during the course of the year, so it's hardly anything. So I would do what I was asked to do because I think that's what being a professional is. But I'm not naturally drawn to being on the red carpet.
To answer the question from Bethan in terms of who comes out of it well and who doesn't, I think Jack Doohan comes out of this season very well. There's a real insight into what went on behind the scenes at Alpine, and in particular, the abuse that he suffered online.
I know,
and I
that
don't think
was
anybody
awful.
has,
Terrible.
and until they watch it, I don't think anyone will understand the gravity of what that was and how awful it was for somebody to achieve their dream and not enjoy a single second of it. I think that was a really impactful episode. I think Laurent Mekies comes out of this season incredibly well. I think Max comes out of this season well. Not convinced Zach Brown comes out of it brilliantly, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I think it's all personal opinion on.
Yeah,
on
actually,
what
well, I've not had the opportunity like you to watch the entire season, but I have seen all of season 7. And it seemed in there, when you mentioned Zach, it felt very much that his only focus was Lando. I know that this was a year ahead of Oscar going toe-to-toe with Lando, but it was very obvious. And being sensitive to my time at McLaren, when it was quite clear that Ron Dennis, who was the former owner and team principal, was very much in favour of Mika Häkkinen, my old teammate, then that's definitely a sore point for me.
Yes.
I think that's a little bit more balanced in season 8, though. I mean, he takes Oscar out for a track day and they have a couple of dinners here and there. And I think there was obviously a lot of managing that he had to do behind the scenes of, as much as we saw Papaya Rules out on track, I think there was a lot of management behind the scenes for them
Papaya
to deal with
Rules
that.
suck.
Do you know who, though, for me, just quickly, had me giggling throughout? Now,
George?
No.
George is so bitchy in this season. Like he's almost like he's not just talking about his season; he's talking about everyone's season.
I know, he
And
may as well be doing your job, to be
honestly, like
He's like the paddock foreman, isn't
that's
he?
why I don't have any controversial lines this season. George has got them all.
George has taken them all. Okay, but no, I was not going to say George. Somebody who had me cracking up, and now you either love him or you hate him. We know a lot of people have strong thoughts about him. Is Flavio
I knew you were going to say that.
Briatore.
Flav.
I mean, the scene,
The
obviously.
house.
Flavio's advisor, obviously, at Alpine. I guess he basically takes the role of team principal at this point, but that's not really his official role. And, many, many years of experience in Formula One, used to be team principal at Renault, etc. You could probably list off his whole history. But I mean, just to go into his home, it's like...
It's wow.
It's
It's a
comical.
museum.
It's comical. It's a museum of
loved
himself,
it.
though.
Yeah, literally. He absolutely loved it. And I think, look, you've nailed it on the head there. We see so much that we would never have gotten to see.
Yeah.
Coming up, we're going to be answering the burning question. Is it made up? Well, I'm looking at you. Make sure you're following us on socials at Up to Speed Show. Comment, like, subscribe, leave a review, and we will be back in a second. Zoe on Facebook asks, how much of it is made up? Do they tell the drivers to act, and do any of them refuse and not play along? DC, I mean, let's be honest. I know you said that you would do it if it's for the team, but let's imagine you got asked to do that. It's not an easy ask,
No.
They've got a lot to deal with.
There's no question that in the interests of the show, then there's a lot of the moments are recorded after the event. There's a lot of moments that are set up. Things like when Antonelli was told that he was going to be a driver, Netflix just happened to be in their home in Italy on that particular day. There's things that are there to capture the moment. But I actually don't have an issue with that, because if they didn't have that level of trust and insight from the teams, it wouldn't give us those sort of remarkable moments. And it's about an emotional journey. That's what sport does. Sport is non-essential in the world, but sport brings people together. The great Nelson Mandela said, sport has the power to change the world. It connects with the youth in a way that politicians and leaders can't.
Your quotes today, I have to
On
say,
fire.
are
Getting that quote
absolutely
book
10 out
out
of 10.
again,
Let's clip.
adding that one.
Yeah, let's clip that one up.
I'm not on the production team. I take no responsibility for what hits the TVs. I just sit in a chair and say dumb things. Is it made up? You can't make it up. But is it a slightly augmented version of reality in the way that so many reality shows are today, like a Kardashians or something like that? I mean, there's an element of poetic license in there, I think, in terms of telling the story. And as DC says, they can't be there for everything. So sometimes, you're supposed to be at Silverstone and they use a little bit of footage from Austria of people walking through the paddock to help tell that story, because they can't be all places at all times. So.
Actually, maybe just to sum that up, when we were shown the F1 movie in Monaco with all the drivers, Jerry Bruckheimer stood up there and said, please remember, this movie isn't made for you. You're all drivers and ex-drivers. This is made for a Formula One fan base and the next generation of Formula One fans. And that actually just really resonated, because then you watch the movie and you could pick out so many things that you go, that would never happen. But it's not made as a reality. In the same way, James Bond. I love James Bond. But does he really save the world every time?
Okay, wait. I know I'm stuck on Flavio Briatore, but honestly, it was just, you guys need to watch it. It's hilarious. I mean, for some, at least to watch it, it's hilarious.
Not for Jack.
But well, no, not that part. But I mean, there's a lot of different elements to Flavio's presence in the season. He seems to set up the cameras with Drive to Survive to show up every time he wants to insult his drivers.
No, but that's how he is.
He's like, you are the problem. You are. Okay, you are the problem, not my car, not my people. Did you ever have an experience with a team principal calling you out, quite like Flavio likes to call
Patrick Head
people
must have
out?
called you out.
Yeah, well, Patrick Head at Williams, he was the chief designer at that time. And I think I've shared with you, certainly privately, where there was once he leant in the cockpit when I was at a Grand Prix. And he said, whatever you're doing, do it better. Which was basically saying you're not doing a good enough job.
It's a great quote.
There's some motivation for you. And again, sorry if I've repeated this before, but I once hitched a lift with Flavio back in his beautiful aircraft from Brazil, white carpets inside, which is always a high-risk strategy. And they served sushi. I was just on the plane with Flavio and one of his friends, and we were handing the sushi with the soya sauce back towards the galley. And his buddy spilt the soya sauce on the white carpet, but he turns and looks at me, and then Flavio looks at me because he trusts his Italian buddy.
Oh, no.
And they think I've spilt the soya sauce.
They chuck you out the plane?
No, we were at 36,000 feet, halfway across the Atlantic. But I grab a glass of wine and I go, no problem, white wine will sort this. Pour it on the carpet.
My goodness.
And the carpet just starts morphing into brown.
Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness.
It's not red wine, mate.
Oh,
It's
my
soy
God.
sauce.
I know. So that was a pretty tense flight all the way back.
Gosh, you're definitely not having your post-race tea in
And
this
that,
plane,
and
are
that
you?
Renault contract never saw the light of
Yeah,
day.
that's it.
Well, the last thing I'll say on Is It Made Up? My favourite thing that Drive to Survive do is when there's a crash and they say, are you okay? It's like, ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. And they're like, yeah, I'm okay. And in real life, it's like, are you okay? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that one. But now we've got a question from Danny on Instagram.
Hi, it's Danny here, and you guys are already my favourite F1 podcast. So in Drive to Survive this year, there was a whole episode on Christian Horner. Do we think we'll see him back in F1 soon? And I know he says it's not true, but why was there no mention of the allegations made by his female employee?
Okay, so to reference what's being discussed there, a female employee at Red Bull accused him of sexual harassment and coercive and controlling behaviour, something which he has always denied and has twice been cleared of. But it is something that Drive to Survive covered in season 7. And so for it not even to be mentioned in the discussion as to why he was let go or the circumstances surrounding Christian being let go this year. Look, as I said, I don't make the series, I don't edit it or produce it.
Yeah, and I think there's that scene quite early on in the season where he comes onto stage at the O2 and the whole room
It's a hard watch,
is
that.
booing, and it was really hard to watch. And I'm sure that it was incredibly hard to stand there, and he did stand there and, made sure he survived the moment. But we don't know what happened back in behind the scenes in terms of why they made the decision to get rid of Christian when they got rid of him. And performance seems to be one of the elements, but I think reputation started to become one of them. I wish, we obviously got to hear from Christian about his departure, and I think he's done a lot for that team and he needed to have that moment to say his goodbye and his part. But it would have been great to get a little bit more understanding of why it happened, you know?
Yeah, I think that there's so many legal issues. But yeah, look, there's no question it tainted his amazing record over 20 years with Red Bull Racing, which leads me to the second part of that question, which will we see him back in F1? I believe we will.
Yeah.
I think the hunger to prove that it wasn't just that Red Bull journey that was his one success in Formula One. The same way that Flavio coming back, he'd been around in the sport when Michael Schumacher was winning at Benetton. So there's something addictive about this sport. I think we all get that, and we're all at different phases of our careers. But once you've got the bug for F1, it's something that's very
How much was
difficult to let
Christian
go.
paid to leave the team?
Allegedly, just under 100 million.
So if I was paid that much to leave my job, you would never see or hear from me ever again.
There's rumour has it he's buying a team.
I don't care how much I love motor racing.
Yeah, but
well,
let me
You would never see me again.
Guys.
Everyone out there in the comments doesn't like me. Get a fundraiser
but you
going.
know what?
100 million. I would
Anyone.
disappear off your screens forever.
Guys, it has been said by many people, if I won the lottery, people, there's this magical figure of $1 million, isn't there? Oh, my first $1 million. They go, if I won $1 million, I would hand in my notice, you'd never see me again. Once you've made $1 million, you want 2. Once you've made 2, you want 10.
It's a little bit more-ish.
There is nothing final about that number, which is a crazy thing in our work ethic. And
This comes from a man
insignificant.
who has seen 7 figures in his bank account. From those of us who haven't, I can tell you, 100 million, I'm gone.
But you say
I'm
that
gone.
well. We're all fans. And, Horner, whatever your opinions are, rooted, he is a fan of the sport. And I think this leads back to what we've been saying.
But I get he's a fan of the sport, but I think Christian coming back now, is it about being a fan of the sport? Is it about...
He's got a point to prove.
It's ego.
And I think that, as DC pointed out, what happened over the last couple of years tainted what would have been a great reputation to leave on. Love him or hate him, that's up for everybody to decide at home. But he did make that Red Bull team incredibly successful. And I think even he feels that whatever happened over the last couple of years, that's not the note he wanted to leave on. And that's probably, I think, why he wants to come back, because he could probably do that again somewhere else, have a bit of success, and then leave on somewhat of a better note.
But being able to leave on your own terms depends on the actions that you take when you're in that position.
100%.
So Julie on TikTok says there are lots of shots of drivers in helicopters this season. What's your most glamorous memory from F1?
I imagine yours are going to be far more glamorous than most of ours. You live the glam F1 life.
Really?
Yeah.
See, you're actually wrong there. I did this to myself, but I wore these big boots. I usually always do have high shoes on, and I remember Silverstone. Naomi and I were speaking about this earlier. Silverstone getting out of that track. Sorry, Julie, this is not answering your question. This is doing the opposite. But it took me
glamorous.
4 hours getting out of there. I did 20,000 steps.
Oh, you did well. You did well.
With a plastic bag over my hair because it was pouring with rain, running to try and get inside. So that was my least glamorous moment. But my most glamorous moment, I would have to say, do you know what? Just being inside the paddock for me every time I go there is a massive pinch me moment. It's a world that I can't even try and explain. It feels like you're in a simulation when you walk through those doors. I think it's something we all take for granted. And I try, and every time I walk in and I, scan my paddock pass, I literally pinch myself. I'm like, wow. And you're walking along and Hamilton goes past on a scooter, and then you go into these insane motorhomes, and you've got these 5-star meals, and it's honestly incredible. So I would just say my whole paddock experience is something I'll never take for granted.
I think for me, red carpet of the F1 movie.
Oh gosh, that was
probably the most glam
mega
thing. I was in Armani head to foot. I felt $1 million, and I loved it. It was just, when is that ever going to happen again in my life?
F1 the movie too?
I didn't know what I was doing there. It was just... Yeah, blew my mind.
You earned your place there. That's why you
blew
were
my
there.
mind, mate. It was wild.
You're up for an Oscar.
I'll take it. It's going on my CV. That's it.
You get my bifter.
There's so many pinch me moments. I think it's such a surreal, as you described it, Jolie, when you walk into the paddock. It's so surreal. And for me as well, making it into the F1 paddock or into the F1 world is very full circle for me. Obviously, I wanted to get there with a steering wheel in my hand. I made it there with a microphone in my hand, slightly different. But if I had to list off all the really glamorous things we do, we'd be here for a long time, like helicopter interviews and this and that and the red carpet in the middle of Times Square. There's a long list of things. But there was one moment for me that really was like, whoa. I was in the paddock in Silverstone, and this young kid came up to me and he said to me, and I was really in a rush. You know how it is between takes. You're like going from one garage to the other, trying to get to an interview. You're live on air. And this kid comes over to me and he's like, hey, Naomi, I just want to say, like, such a big fan of what you do. Me and my family, we watch you every weekend at home. And I'm like, oh, that's really sweet. Thank you. But I kind of like, I gotta go. And anyway, we're like hurrying him along a little bit. Anyway, his parents come along because he kept saying, you know, my parents are such big fans. They love you. They watch you every weekend. And I'm just thinking, this is great. Awesome. Thank you. His parents rock up and it's Catherine Zeta-Jones. And Michael Douglas.
No.
And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make this live shot. I was like, you know, this is like you rub shoulders with, you know, the creme de la creme.
Wow,
and to
that's
think
cool.
that, you know, just humble old little me coming from where I've come from to have people like Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas be fans of me is like something I never could have
I've got shivers.
imagined.
That's cool.
And, you know, you come out of your TV compound, which is really not that glamorous. It's a container. And then you walk into the paddock and it's like we get to rub shoulders with some people and have these really surreal moments. But it's a lot of hard work. We're in there mostly working and sweating and getting the hard stuff done. But moments like that just make it
Right, come on,
so
DC,
worth
you
it.
trump us. Trump us all.
No, actually, what I'm going to do is agree with everything you've just said there about how when you are a genuine fan of the sport, and my journey was watching Grand Prix from as young as I can remember with my father, listening to Murray Walker and James Hunt on highlights on BBC, which is because Formula One wasn't that popular back then. So a British Grand Prix was still even highlights. So we would get half an hour at 9 p.m. on BBC Two back in those days. And that half an hour made my entire week. You know, it was just the glamour of being in Monte Carlo or being in Brazil or being in Japan. It was my geography of the world. So to then find myself as a test driver sitting looking across at Alain Prost, who was a four-time world champion in Formula One, then working with Nigel Mansell, who won his world championship, then working with Ayrton Senna. These were the moments that really were the pinch me moments, because these were the gods of racing that I only read about in magazines or saw on the television. But then once that becomes your reality, the truth is that all of those guys were young boys, and there's young girls out there, Naomi, as you know, that are aspiring to be Formula One drivers in the future. Everybody comes from humble beginnings, whether you're born into wealth or not. You, as a child, you don't know what your situation is. You know, you just grow up with innocence. You've got your lovely son here with you here. And, you know, so you just develop into those moments. So I've had all of those things where rubbing shoulders with celebrities. The moments I've enjoyed most are the private moments that aren't the red carpet, where people aren't sort of on show.
Yeah.
But the reality of the journey, as we all know, it's tough. It's hard. And just because you dream about it doesn't mean it's going to happen. So here's my top tip that my grandmother always used to tell me. Dreaming is what you do when you sleep. Achieving is what you do when you work. So
love
don't
that.
dream
Like
too much,
that.
kids.
Yeah, I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I mean, but look, I could shed a tear.
Don't want to bring the
No, honestly, I
eyelashes.
think we are so lucky to do what we do, and I think we can never take for granted that this is the world we work in, no matter how hard it can feel sometimes, no matter how many moments you have away from home, the things you miss out on. Like, we are blessed to do what we do.
100%.
So we do not take that for
100%.
granted whatsoever. Well, that's all we have time for today. I hope you guys are all going to enjoy Drive to Survive Season 8. And once you're done watching it, make sure to tune in for the races and come and find us here at Up to Speed, where we're going to be breaking down everything that you see on track. On socials, we're at Up to Speed Show. And if you want to send us an email, it's uptospeed@global.com. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow so that you never miss an episode. Our episodes are coming out on Mondays and Thursdays, so we will see you then. All of the episodes are available on Global Player, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Well, we'll see you on Thursday for the last show before the season starts. Right now, I think, DC, you're off to the airport, so you better go if you don't want to miss that flight.
See you, team.
See you later.
See you, mate.
See you. Don't spill any soy sauce.
This has been a Global Player original production.